Hello, everyone. My name is Paula Camperman, and I'm the Outreach Program Manager of the Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance. I'll be talking to you today about managing a successful food scrap diversion program involving condo complexes and homeowner associations while adhering to guidelines of Vermont's recycling law. All of the materials and websites mentioned today will be included along with a recording of the webinar in a follow-up email you'll receive tomorrow, and will also be available on our YouTube channel. I will answer any questions at the end of the presentation, so feel free to click on the chat button or Q&A at the bottom of your toolbar if you have any questions along the way. So let's get started. Many of you might be hearing about the Alliance for the first time today, so I'll give you a little background. The Alliance was formed in 2015 to assist participating towns in reducing solid waste disposed in landfills by reducing the amount of waste generated, conserving resources, and promote recycling and reuse. The Alliance provides education and outreach to businesses, schools, and residents. To achieve the Alliance's goal to reduce the amount of materials people in our service area send to the landfill and increase the amount of material diverted from landfills for recycling and reuse. The Alliance is made up of 13 towns: Arlington, Bennington, Dorset, Glastonbury, Manchester, Pownell, Rupert, Sandgate, Searsburg, Shaftesbury, Stamford, Sunderland, and Woodford. The towns of Peru, Reedsboro, Londonderry, Landgrove, and Winhall, while in Bennington County, are not members of the Alliance. All of the businesses, residents, schools, and organizations located within the Alliance can take advantage of our services. Service the Alliance provides include solid waste audits, where we visit your business or location and review your waste management practices, offer technical assistance in managing your solid waste. This could include review of current recycling laws, provide sources to recycling items banned from the landfill, provide communication pieces and signing for your residents about recycling, while suggesting ways to possibly lower your solid waste hauling costs. We host household hazardous waste collection events during warmer months of the year. This service is also available to small businesses if they pre-register with us, which can cost less than a dedicated pickup by a hazardous waste collection company coming to your location. We provide source information for the disposal of banned items such as computers and electronics, fluorescent bulbs, and paint through special recycling. Most of the information is available on our website. We also provide community outreach, presentations to groups and the public about recycling, composting, and waste reduction. A good example of this is to make a presentation to residents of an apartment or condominium complex about food scrap diversion and proper recycling. Nearly half of all the waste produced globally is either organic or biodegradable. When sent to a landfill and allowed to degrade anaerobically, that's without the presence of oxygen, methane is produced, which is 30 times more powerful than carbon dioxide at trapping heat. The increases in greenhouse gas emissions is responsible for our climate change. So, when we reduce the amount of waste we generate, we reduce the need for additional landfill space while reducing our carbon footprint. Vermont's Universal Recycling Law adopted a food recovery hierarchy into law in 2012 to draw attention to the use of uneaten food and help guide consumers into making the highest and best use of their food. The most preferred method being source reduction, followed by food for people, then animals, then composting. When we reduce our consumption of food and thereby reduce the amount of food scraps generated in the first place by shopping smarter, strategically planning meals with the foods we have on hand, less of our food goes to waste. When we do have leftover food, our first priority is to give it to the people first, through food pantries and other organizations. When we have lower quality food waste, we share that with animals and other agricultural uses. Any leftover food at this point should be composted or used in anaerobic digestion. In 2014, Vermont began requiring food scrap generators like grocery stores, universities, and other large hospitals to divert their food scraps from landfills to certified facilities. As of July 1st, smaller generators, including residents, are now required to divert their food scraps. Ordinance requires residents to adjust the ways in which the food is disposed of, and as condo owners, implement a program for food scrap diversion that meets the needs of all residents while still complying with state laws. I'll spend the next few minutes outlining the details and requirements. As you know, as of July 1st, 2020, all food scraps cannot go in the trash in Vermont, including condos. Condos and HOAs are not required to hire or provide food scrap management services for its residents, but they must keep food scraps separate from trash. As we know, first step to assure that arrangements have been made for the removal of trash. Pardon me, a slide jumped ahead. The first step to assure that arrangements have been made for the removal of food scraps from all units, which can be done in a variety of ways. As you decide on which method of collection and disposal to use, consider that some residents do not drive, or there may be insufficient space to manage food scraps on site. Residents and associations have three options. First, they may hire a company to pick up food scraps. While haulers are not required by law to pick up food scraps from condo owners individually, they may offer food scrap collection as part of a trash and recycling service already being provided on site. This is helpful, especially in a multi-unit setting, as it may make sense to manage trash, recycling, and food scraps together collectively. Residents also have the option to collect food scraps individually or collectively and drop them off at a transfer station, farm, or community composting facility. Third option, digest or compost in a backyard space or common green area on site, can be an easy diversion method if space is available and someone is willing to actively manage the bin or bins. When properly managed, composting produces a rich soil amendment containing vital nutrients that can be added to houseplants, gardens, and lawns while reducing soil erosion and protecting against drought, as it holds 20 times its weight in water. Backyard composting is a relatively inexpensive option, with residents or the HOA purchasing or building a bin to collect scraps. Using a solar digester, for those unfamiliar with the process, is a way for residents to place food scraps, including meat, bones, and pet waste, into a container partially submerged underground that may only need to be emptied every few years. When commercial haulers provide food scrap collection, they typically provide containers, either rolling carts similar to trash and recycling carts, to store outside or within a shed or garage. When condo owners are coordinating individual pickups from residential units for drop-off at either a central location, collection point on site, or at a transfer station, 2 to 5 gallon buckets like you see here pictured with lids work well for each unit's food scraps. Now that I've explained the various options that are to food scrap diversion, I'm going to describe the ways to get your chosen food scrap collection system started. If you are already using a hauler to pick up your trash and recycling, check to see if they offer food scrap collection. If your decision to use this method is financially motivated, check to see if your costs will be higher with the added service. If an HOA has multiple units or generates a high volume of waste, you may be able to negotiate a more favorable fee structure with your hauler by adjusting the size of trash collection containers or pickup schedule. It may also be worth conducting a cost comparison among different haulers. Commercial haulers may also provide an additional tote containing wood pulp or sawdust. My apologies, let's try that again. When not using a hauler, keep in mind managing odors and pests around food scraps prior to pickup require adding browns or carbons. such as sawdust, mulch, wood shavings, leaves, shredded newspaper, coffee grounds, and other organic material on top of food scraps stored in a tote or bin. Commercial haulers may provide an additional tote containing wood pulp or sawdust, which landlords and tenants can use to apply on top of food scraps. So you'll need to make sure your collection location has enough space for the additional bins. The amount of sawdust or other browns, as they're called, once added on top of food scraps will vary with the temperature and how full your bin is. So for example, in summer months, you may need to add 2 to 6 inches of the browns material, the wood pulp you see pictured here, particularly to full bins to keep maggots and flies at bay, and much less during the colder winter months when there are fewer pests. Packing your browns or sawdust down with a handheld garden tool will help control the pests and maximize space in the bin between pickups. It is important for either the property manager or residents working this system in adding scraps to the bins, understanding the process of keeping it running well. If you're dropping off food scraps at a transfer station, you want to make sure the residents or staff handling them are aware of the hours and any fees charged as to get the items dropped off. Most haulers and drop-off locations accept all food scraps, including meat and bones, fats, oils, coffee grounds, and filters, as well as spoiled food. It is important that residents understand what goes in the bins or collection buckets is just organic matter. No produce sticky labels, wrappings, or plastic bags of any kind that might be used to line a kitchen compost bin or transport scraps from the kitchen to a common area collection bin. Plastic bags do not break down during the composting process and must be sorted out. Most haulers only accept bags that are labeled BPI certified and compostable, but check with your hauler before implementing them in your program. On a side note, compostable bags should be used as a bucket liner and can be very expensive, particularly over a long period of time, and their quality from brand to brand can vary widely. A less expensive method may be to line a small bucket with newspaper and wash out the bucket once emptied into a larger collection tote. Hardware stores and online bulk wholesalers sell the smaller buckets with lids. Some restaurants, bakeries, grocery stores, and other food manufacturers have extra buckets on hand that they give away for free. You can also check websites like FreeCycle or networks like Front Porch Forum, where they are sometimes advertised. If the property has just a few residential units, composting food scraps in the backyard can be an easy solution if a resident or property manager is willing to actively manage the piles throughout the year. Compost bins can be made out of a variety of materials, but plastic compost bins purchased at hardware stores or through our alliance during warmer months at scheduled events can be an economical and easy way to get started. Residents composting in the backyard should be reminded that leftover meat and bones should be placed in the trash rather than the compost bin, as their composting systems in the backyard won't reach a temperature high enough to properly break down the animal material and can attract unwanted animals. The key to a successful compost system is understanding the technique for proper breakdown to keep animals away and maintain healthy sanitary conditions on your property. University of Vermont's Extension has a master composting course online, and the state of Vermont has resources as well for successful composting. Solar digesters are also a good solution if you don't have a use for finished compost and just want to break down the food scraps, or a solar digester will break down all food scraps, including meat, bones, and animal waste. While a lot more expensive up front, it requires less looking after once the system is up and running than a composting system. In either case, it is important that you size your system to be sufficient to serve the number of units you have. Vermont has seen an increase in human-bear interactions, so it's important to take a few steps to discourage bears and to manage your compost so it doesn't attract animals. Take down bird feeders during non-winter months. Use 3 times as many browns as greens to minimize smell and to speed up the composting process, and regularly turn your compost pile so the materials break down more quickly. If bear activity persists, check with your neighbors to see if they have bird feeders or other food sources attracting the animals. More information about composting and resources to address animal issues can be found in a booklet entitled "The Dirt on Compost." For any food scrap diversion program to be successful, communication and understanding of the process is key. It is important to help residents understand what food scraps are and how they will be collected in the dwelling and brought to the central location or area of the backyard system. Will receptacles such as a bucket with a lid to collect the food scraps in the kitchen to take later to collection bins outside work? Make sure residents are aware of the collection schedule if they are involved in taking collection bins or buckets to curbside or central location to be picked up by your hauler. They need to know what is and is not allowed in the collection tote or compost bin or solar digester. The state of Vermont has downloadable bin signs you can also use to post above bins identifying proper sorting of food scraps, recycling, and trash, as well as instructions for setting up a composting system. Your hauler may also provide you with signs for easy sorting of items. Larger facilities have noted success when using a fellow resident living within the complex to act as a guide and influencer, if you will, to instruct fellow residents on proper sorting and upkeep of the waste sorting area. If residents are contaminating the bins by putting items in the wrong place, this person can make reminders about proper sorting within the system. It's important to put the whole process in perspective. Residents understand that most of what they are throwing away isn't trash, but a marketable commodity within a monetary value on items such as paper, aluminum, cardboard, glass, tin, plastic, and now food scraps. Their behavior about sorting items and making sure items are clean and dry and uncontaminated may change. You'll also know that your efforts of educating them are paying off when the bins are looking cleaner and smell less, and they've done their part to reduce their carbon footprint. Now, of course, if they aren't really thinking about that, then they're at least likely to notice that it doesn't smell as much. The Alliance is available to host on-site and virtual presentations about recycling and composting to help residents better understand the process, so your waste management system and program are a success. We can also perform a waste audit at your location to address your needs about special recycling or other waste management concerns you may have. So to recap, condo owners and HOAs have a variety of options to arrange for the removal of food scraps from rentals. HOA can subscribe to a pickup service where available for members, such as a hauler, or ensure members bring food scraps to a drop-off, farm, transfer station, or community composting facility. You can set up a backyard compost system or solar digester. Vermont law requires haulers to collect food scraps from commercial accounts and residential addresses with 4 or more units, but haulers may also provide the service to address these voluntarily with fewer than 4 units. Most haulers accept all food scraps, including meat, bones, fats, oils, coffee grounds, and filters, and spoiled food. All scraps picked up by haulers or composted on site must be free of labels and bags. The exception is if a hauler permits bags that are PI certified compostable bags. Condo owners and HOAs should allow enough space for additional bins required to collect food scraps and store sawdust or browns put on top of the food scraps, as well as supply adequate signing and information about the waste management program in place. Residents composting on site may discard their meat and bones directly in the trash, since composting bins do not reach the temperatures high enough to ensure proper breakdown and to avoid attracting animals and other pests. Residents using solar digesters may add meat, bones, and animal waste directly into their systems. Proper education to residents and signing will go a long way to a successful waste management program. Condo owners and HOAs should partner with a resident influencer to Help educate and communicate to others about correct sorting when there is contamination to ensure the highest and best use of recycled materials. As an added point not previously mentioned, we encourage larger properties especially to consider offering the separating of banned items from the trash, such as electronics or e-waste, be held separately and brought to the transfer station. It doesn't take a lot of time or space, but spares precious elements that can be recycled and potentially combustible components, such as lithium batteries, from being landfilled and also known to start fires. These items can be taken to the transfer station and then recycled in a safe manner. In addition, architectural paint still in liquid form that may be collecting on site can be dropped off for recycling at several area retailers in quantities of up to 5 gallons a day in its original container. Any paint that has hardened should be disposed of in the trash. Finally, we'd like to remind folks that household hazardous waste includes things like chemicals, pesticides, paints, and mercury-containing items such as fluorescent bulbs, thermometers, thermostats, and alkaline and rechargeable batteries can be dropped off during our household hazardous waste collection events held during warmer months of the year. Follow us on Facebook or see our ads in the Vermont News Guide for scheduled dates and locations. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. I will now answer any questions, so feel free to click on the chat button or Q&A and submit your items in the toolbar. Okay, I think we don't have any questions at this point, so I will end the meeting or webinar presentation. Thank you again. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me or our program manager, Michael Batcher, at the information you see located on your screen.